Well, thank you for allowing us to do the interview today. Shane, what would you say was the inspiration for the book?
I would say the concept for Beautifully Broken really speaks to the healing of old wounds. If you're able to embrace the idea of healing, I think that it's a beautiful thing, really. If we're alive, we've all had wounds, and I decided a long time ago that I was going to embrace the idea of healing and invite it into my life.
And what would your favorite poems in the book be?
Mm. Picking a favorite poem for my book is like picking my favorite child. I would say, but if I had to pick, I guess I would say maybe Faith in Nothing. It's a poem about a girl that I knew a long time ago that had an unhealthy attraction to abusive men. And it was written largely about conversations that I had with her and the general feeling of what she was going through at the time. I'd say my other favorite, if I had to pick, would be Beautifully Broken, because I think it contains some of my best lines. The last stanza of the poem actually says, I picked up the pieces of you and held them in my arms. They were so beautifully broken like the thousands of stars. I think that my use of imagery in that poem is something I really liked.
And to get a little bit of personal background on you, where are you from, and how did your hometown inspire you?
I'm from Hood River, Oregon, and it's a small town, and I was my mother's only child, so I spent a lot of time alone as a child, and I think that's where I initially started writing. I came from a fairly dysfunctional family, but I was loved, and I think that's been part of my journey is that my capacity for love of other people has come from the fact that I was loved, even though I came from kind of a strange background. Um, yeah.
Who and what inspires you and has inspired you the most?
I find inspiration in a lot of different places, but I would say primarily I'm really inspired by kind people, and certainly other authors. My very favorite author is Anne Rice. My next favorite author is actually her son, Christopher Rice. Um, Also, I have a number of friends who are authors that really just continually inspire me and fuel my creativity. If you get a chance to check them out, Greg Wilkie, K.L. Bone, Sarah Craddock, Samiko Salson, they are all just marvelously talented people, and I'm very inspired by their work.
What future writings can we expect from Shane Chase?
Well, I am currently working on my debut novel, which I can't disclose too much information or title about, but I will say it's somewhat of a psychological drama centered on a young man who is overcoming a tragedy in his life and how he is coping with that. And I'm also fast at work on my second volume of poetry, which is called Staring at the Stars, and that's slated for a release around the new year.
Now, before we close this out, could we talk you into reading a poem from your book?
Sure. Let's see. I guess since I referenced it earlier, I'll read Faith in Nothing. She cried reckless tears for the parade of men who had been reckless with her. She amazed me in her unabashed way, in the desperation of the moment and the cool of her disposition. I held her. To hold a single tear in your hand and feel what others have felt before, even if different than anything others had felt, I held her. I told her sweet things. I wanted her to know that she was beautiful. I wanted her to know that her life was worth living and that she was capable of bliss. Even after all the tears she cried, I begged her to know life's beauty had not died. And still, she cried reckless tears.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here today, Shane.
Thank you. I appreciate the interview.